In the early hours after the shooting near Brown University, Providence felt quieter than usual, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Sirens had faded, yellow tape fluttered in the cold morning air, and students woke to alerts that blurred together with fear. Police released new details about a person of interest, careful with every word, urging calm while asking for help. Names were not confirmed, motives not assigned, only fragments offered to a community desperate for certainty. In that uncertainty, kindness began to move like a low tide, subtle but powerful, touching places the news could not reach. At a coffee shop a block from campus, the barista taped a handwritten sign to the counter, "If you're scared, your coffee is on us." Students who had barely slept lined up, hands shaking around their phones, scrolling for updates. The barista didn't ask questions. She remembered the way fear feels when it arrives uninvited and how it needs warmth more than answers. She poured cups and listened as strangers shared where they had been when they heard the sirens, how they texted friends until replies came through. Each story was different, yet the same thread ran through them all: relief that they were alive and worry for those who were not. Across campus, a professor canceled class and instead opened his office door. He had taught ethics for decades, but this morning he said nothing about theories or texts. He simply sat and let students come in pairs or alone. Some cried, some stared at the wall. He reminded them gently that it was okay to step away from productivity, that humanity sometimes requires stillness. When one student asked about the police update, he answered with care, emphasizing that investigations move slowly for a reason, that restraint protects everyone. He modeled patience not as passivity but as respect for truth. Police briefings continued throughout the day. The new details, released without sensationalism, asked the public to share information while discouraging speculation. Officers spoke about timelines and locations, not about blame. In a city where rumors can travel faster than facts, this tone mattered. It left space for compassion to breathe. Community leaders echoed the message, urging neighbors to look out for one another and to remember that fear can make us hard if we let it. That evening, a vigil formed on the green. Candles flickered as names were left unsaid, honoring privacy and pain. A student musician brought a violin and played softly, the notes floating into the cold air like a promise. A mother who lived nearby brought blankets from her house, draping them over shoulders without asking who needed them most. A police officer stood at the edge, helmet tucked under his arm, listening. Someone offered him a candle. He hesitated, then accepted, lighting it with a nod that said more than words could. Online, kindness took another shape. Alumni posted messages of support, offering rides, spare rooms, job connections, and counseling resources. A local therapist opened free sessions for students and first responders alike. A gym waived fees for the week, inviting people to move their bodies through the tension. A librarian extended hours and put out puzzles and coloring books, small anchors for restless hands. As night deepened, the city did not sleep easily, but it slept together. Windows glowed in dorms where doors stayed open, friends checking on friends. Police cruisers rolled slowly, visible, steady. The details released earlier had not answered every question, but they had done something else: they had guided the community toward patience. In the space between knowing and not knowing, kindness had found its work. It stitched people together with coffee and blankets, music and silence, and the shared understanding that safety is not only the absence of danger but the presence of care. By morning, the rhythm of Providence returned in cautious steps. Students walked to class in small groups. Conversations were softer, more attentive. The news cycle continued, as it always does, but the city carried something quieter and stronger beneath it. The kindness that rose in response to fear did not erase what had happened, but it changed how people held it. And in that holding, a community practiced what it means to be humane when certainty is scarce. When the next police update arrived, it was received with the same careful attention. The details were still limited, the language precise. Officials thanked the public for tips and reminded everyone that an investigation is not a verdict. That reminder mattered. In an age of instant judgment, it took courage to slow down. It took kindness to wait. In a residence hall common room, a group of students organized a letter-writing table. They wrote to custodial staff, campus security, and local nurses, thanking them for showing up. One student wrote to her younger brother, explaining what had happened without fear, focusing on how people helped one another. Another wrote to herself, promising to ask for help when needed. The letters were folded carefully, placed in envelopes, and carried out into the world like small, deliberate acts of hope. A shop owner near Thayer Street put up another sign the next day: "Talk to me." It wasn't marketing, it was an invitation. A man who had lived in the neighborhood for 40 years came in and shared how he remembered past moments when the city had faced shock and sorrow. He spoke about how fear can shrink a place unless people refuse to let it. They talked about the police statement, about trust built through transparency and restraint, about how words can wound or heal. The shop owner listened, rang up a purchase the man didn't need, and sent him off with a smile. As classes resumed fully, professors adjusted deadlines without being asked. Advisors checked in. The campus clinic extended hours. Police maintained a visible but gentle presence, greeting students by name when they could. The person of interest remained just that, a subject of investigation rather than a symbol to project anger onto. This restraint protected the community from tearing itself apart with suspicion. At the end of the week, the vigil candles were gone, but chalk messages remained on the sidewalks, hearts, notes of gratitude, reminders to breathe. Rain threatened, but no one rushed to wash them away. They were a record of how people had chosen to respond. Kindness had not been loud. It had been consistent. In the days that followed, life moved on, as it must. Yet something stayed. Students learned that safety grows where patience and empathy are practiced. Officers learned that transparency earns trust. Neighbors learned that offering warmth does not require perfect words. And when future alerts buzzed phones, people remembered this moment, not only for the fear it brought, but for the way a community answered it. The details released by police would eventually be replaced by conclusions, reports, and lessons learned. But long after those specifics faded, the memory of kindness endured. It lived in the barista's sign, the professor's open door, the officer's candle, and the countless quiet choices made when it mattered most. In a time of uncertainty, the community had chosen to be gentle with one another, proving that even in the shadow of violence, humanity can stand firm.